If you thought As Above, So Below was just another found footage horror movie about a bunch of people trying to find the Philosopher's Stone in a tunnel, you're not alone. But you might have missed the point of the movie, and I blame that entirely on Harry Potter.
Expecto Patronum!
Dick! To be fair, I also blame writer-director John Dowdle for assuming everyone in the audience was familiar with the concept of the 9 circles of hell. But to be clear, that does not make Harry Potter any less of a dick.
Patronum!
Joking. The idea the Philosopher's Stone grants people eternal life is actually a meticulously orchestrated spiritual trap, and all the characters we're following today fell for that trap. I think this found footage movie is deceptively deep in its writing. So today, I'm going to walk you through what I see as the unique and unsettling brilliance of As Above, So Below. I will also touch on the 9 circles of hell and how they dictate the characters' journeys. Imagine dedicating years of your life to obsessively chasing a legendary artifact that promises unimaginable power and even immortality. You've pushed through fear, you've pushed through your own sanity. You've even crawled through dusty stone passages literally lined with the bones of 6 million dead Parisians, all in pursuit of this one single goal. And when you're finally clutching that supposedly miraculous rock, it brings the ceiling down and nearly kills everybody. And as brutal as all that sounds, if you don't recognize what's happening immediately, you and all your friends will suffer a far worse fate. In this movie, the Philosopher's Stone is not the answer to some riddle. It's not even a prize. It is a big, fat, juicy worm on the end of an existential fishing hook. And the catacombs themselves are way more than just a creepy backdrop. They serve as a mirror, reflecting all of your hidden truths and buried sins right back at you. And as all these characters learn as the story progresses, no external magic is going to help any of them escape. Our main character, Scarlett Marlowe, is an intelligent, fashionably rogue, Lara Croft-esque type archaeologist. Kind of. And she's absolutely convinced the Philosopher's Stone is hidden under the streets of Paris. And she persuades a cameraman, a translator, and 3 local explorers to join her. The tunnel collapses behind them almost immediately, making going back impossible, and from that point forward, things go very quickly from bad to apocalyptic. Outwardly, every corridor seems to tighten and every chamber darkens and becomes more menacing the deeper they get into the earth. But inwardly, as the story's progressing, every one of the characters is forced to stare the absolute last thing they want to admit about themselves directly in the eye. Now, on the surface, this might seem like another run-of-the-mill plot device to help crank up the tension, but it's actually the core principle of the film manifesting as a fast-paced, terrifying action sequence rife with introspection and forced soul-searching. The expression "as above, so below" comes from a 1,000-year-old emerald tablet, which is considered a foundational element of alchemy, which, in a nutshell, is an ancient mystical understanding of materials. And this expression the movie is named after essentially boils down to one profoundly simple idea. Your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world. Think of it this way. If your bedroom is always messy, your inner monologue is probably messy too. If you constantly find yourself trapped in toxic relationships, that's probably mirroring a toxic self-talk loop you've got playing in your head, whether you can hear it or not. In As Above, So Below, this isn't just a philosophy, it's more like an operating manual for the nightmarish journey these characters are all thrust into. Every passage they navigate causes the actual stone walls to echo and manifest the emotional damage each of them is dragging around with them. George is Scarlett's ex-boyfriend, and he reluctantly comes along to help translate. On arriving at the catacombs, George can't decide whether he's going to join them inside or not. This corresponds rather neatly with Dante's first circle of hell, limbo. Because he can't make up his mind. Limbo, kind of waiting around. George's internal struggle is an unshakable and debilitating refusal to forgive himself for the death of his younger brother, an event he genuinely couldn't have prevented. His self-blame has been eating him alive for so long, the catacombs hone in on his guilt immediately. When they happen upon the exact piano him and his little brother used to play together as kids, the catacombs are making it clear they're not just randomly torturing George, they are manifesting and replaying the actual memories he's been torturing himself with. Papillon's sin is fully encapsulated in his cynical, if you can't sell it, it's worthless worldview. He's motivated strictly by material. He wanted nothing to do with helping Scarlett until she mentioned the word treasure. And even after things shift perilously close to disaster, he remains focused on the treasure and motivated by it. Pap's deepest and most terrifying nightmare is the prospect of being trapped or consumed by something he deems worthless. Next up is Susie, whose sin is as cryptic and implied as Papillon's was. At the start of the story, Susie and Papillon reveal they lost a friend down in the catacombs 2 years earlier. And when that friend shocks them by appearing, he says, "You never even came to look for me." Susie looks clearly upset by this heartbreaking declaration, and being the only one in the group to physically approach him, we can assume the lost friend was talking about her specifically. Benji is the cameraman, and his defining sin is his libido. He locks eyes with a mysterious girl as they're entering the club, and then again as she's walking past an iron gate outside. And then again inside the catacombs in her role as choir master to a congregation of discontent spirits. And then finally, to drive the point all the way home, Benji demonstrates his priorities by commenting on how attractive the curator of the museum is, making specific reference to her great legs. On the surface, the leader of this expedition and our brilliant but flawed protagonist, Scarlett, appears to be chasing academic glory the way so many in her field do. But peel that surface back and you'll find a gaping internal wound caused by the self-inflicted death of her father, who was also an archaeologist. Tragically, he took his life in disgrace when his radical theories were mocked by his peers, and the trauma from that event defines Scarlett. And so, the minute the philosopher's stone proves fraudulent, the physical maze of the catacombs transforms into a personalized radio receiver that broadcasts her agony everywhere. The group finds a vintage landline telephone that is somehow ringing. She feels inexplicably drawn to answer the phone, and when she picks it up, her dead father asks why she never replied to his final voicemail. She hears the chilling creak of his noose, and the further they descend into the earth, the louder and more inescapable her guilt becomes. Historically speaking, alchemists were never trying to turn things into literal gold, at least not the enlightened ones. An alchemist's true pursuit was of the great work, or the elusive process of spiritual enlightenment. They were aiming to transform their flaws and their guilts and the lesser parts of their being into the gold of being an enlightened person. And after frantically scrambling to understand what was happening to them, Scarlett's ultimate breakthrough, or the moment of her profound realization, arrives when she finally understands and repeats the ancient alchemist motto: Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenies occultum lapidem. I'm presenting this review from inside a tunnel while I'm speaking Latin, and all for 160 views. Hit the like button or I'm going to disappear into the catacombs myself. And this isn't just some cool Latin phrase. In English, it means visit the interior parts of the earth, and by rectification, you will find the hidden stone. This acronym for the motto symbolizes our inner journey towards ultimate wisdom, or the true philosopher's stone. Before their realizations, they pass an inscription saying, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." And this is also lifted directly from Dante's Inferno. Now, taken literally, it denotes the actual physical entrance to the gates of hell. But viewed symbolically or spiritually, it refers to the idea that purifying yourself is really hard work. Hard as hell, actually. Once these characters acknowledge their situations or rectify their inner worlds, they are able to navigate their outer worlds, for better or worse. For George, the only way to escape this gallows of his own making is to decisively and finally forgive himself for what happened in his childhood. And after the catacombs show him his brother drowning in the cavern's floor, he realizes how truly powerless he was as a child, and he lets himself off the hook. You'll remember, Papillon's biggest fear was to be consumed by worthless things, so the catacombs oblige him. They find a burning car with somebody inside it, and if you were paying attention earlier, that same person gave them directions when they first came into the tunnels. And when Papillon sees the car and who's inside it, he immediately claims whatever happened, it wasn't his fault. And given the principles this movie is based on, we can assume he earned the burn on his arm through greed. Whatever happened with this burning car and the person inside it, it was his fault. And Papillon's refusal to ultimately take responsibility results in a classic alchemist's warning. If you cling too tightly to base dead matter, then you too will become base dead matter. And unfortunately for Susie, she never apologized. Later on, when she reaches out to superficially comfort her friend, they happen to be in the seventh circle of hell. Her friend responds appropriately because according to Dante, the seventh circle of hell is violence. By refusing to truly face and acknowledge the abandonment of her friend, the apparition of the memory beat her to death with the same rock that ultimately robbed her missing friend of his life. Which tells us hell is not without a sense of irony, or humor, albeit a twisted one. As Benji is preparing to descend the well, he hears somebody. We see it's the woman's spirit, but he doesn't until it's too late. It's worth pointing out, when she pushes him with the dead baby in her arms, they are in the eighth circle of hell, which is where seducers are punished. But when he dies, he's in the ninth circle after landing there. The ninth circle is treachery, and it's reserved for people who betray people very close to them. Some people suggest Benji and Susie and Papillon's death contradict the principles the catacombs are supposedly reflecting, because they weren't given the opportunity to repent or acknowledge their sins the way the other ones did. While I understand the angle, I don't agree. Susie had the chance to apologize as soon as she heard, "You never even looked for me," but she didn't. Papillon outright denied whatever happened was his fault, and that was after seeing everything happening to everybody else with his own two eyes. And when it comes to Benji, I think given the implication there was a child involved and the fact that his behavior hasn't changed at all, is it that hard to conclude he's just irredeemable? After all, he's in the ninth circle of hell. When it comes to Scarlett, the coveted stone doesn't fail her in this story or suddenly lose its magic. It activates the ultimate mirror in her. And until she can finally admit her real motivation is to bury her own profound shame by proving her father was right, the tunnels around her will continue to fold in on themselves, trapping her in an eternal cycle of self-deception. And as this story's main character, her journey is an impeccable example of the alchemist's quest gone wrong, where the real internal hard work is cast aside for the external pursuit of a superficially famous rock. Once Scarlett truly understands the stone's meaning, she also understands this thing she's been chasing obsessively, thinking it's going to fix everything, is not hidden under Paris. Because the true magic comes when she stops searching for something outside of herself to fix what's broken inside. The philosopher's stone is the purified essence of your own being. And you purify yourself by confronting and accepting and correcting the negative aspects of yourself you've been instinctively burying. Scarlett's revelation allows her to revive George and reverse his injuries because she has reversed her own mirror. She is the philosopher's stone. In the end, Scarlett and George climb up a manhole ladder and emerge in the Paris morning light, right under the iconic Eiffel Tower, symbolizing their ascension to freedom. This also mirrors Dante and Virgil exiting hell. It's the same city they left behind, but everything feels profoundly different, as is visualized by the inverted camera angle. They are shaken up and they are scarred, but they're also transformed. Obviously, it's a cool closing shot, but it's also the film's ultimate visual punchline. They were able to climb out of their personalized underworlds not because they found some magical relic, but because they stopped seeing the world in terms of heaven and hell, or above and below. And with that rigid distinction collapsed, they have figured out what a lot of us never will. Heaven and hell aren't fixed locations you go to. They are intensely personal perspectives or states of being you forge within your own heart. And over the course of this silly found footage movie, we have watched these characters realize that. In addition to everything we just talked about, I would like to point out what makes this movie really stand out for me personally. Traditionally speaking, when you think of most horror movies, even a lot of your favorites, I'm sure, they tend to punish their characters for superficial transgressions. And the concept is so ingrained in horror movie structure, it's also ingrained in our horror movie thinking. Don't have sex, don't wander away from the group, and definitely do not read that weird language from the book with the teeth on it. In other words, most horror movies focus on the external. You commit a sin early on, and you deserve whatever you get in the second act and beyond. But as above, so below literally flips that concept upside down. Instead of punishing its characters for outward acts, it forces them to face their own deep-seated guilts and unresolved traumas. And the catacombs aren't just some spooky backdrop either. They are a divine correctional facility custom-built for each potential criminal. And the warden is not some demonic CGI creature, it is their own psyches holding them accountable for eternity. Once you figure out what this movie is trying to say, you might start wondering what kind of things these tunnels would reflect if you hopped into them yourself. And in that sense, for me anyways, this dumb little movie becomes a bit of a journey inward, or a timeless reflection of our struggle to purify and transform ourselves into the gold we all hope we can be one day. If you have seen As Above, So Below, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. As always, thank you very much for watching my little video. And until next time, folks.